can talk about the Lakers more.
Let's do it.
Cool. Well, let's do it. Thanks everyone for joining. I'll give a quick intro and then I'll pass it to John and Reagan. My name is Maddie Warden. I'm on the AWS Alliance team here at Sugar. Been on the team for about 4 months now. So we kind of the precipice for this webinar was we have a lot of interesting convos with Reagan on our weekly meetings, just about AI and how it's changing our day to day. And a lot new has come out of the AWS pipe. Sugar's had to kind of react and adjust with what we're doing and how we're helping our customers with these new releases. So wanted to just do a quick chat Q&A with Reagan, who is a PDM at AWS, and then John Yu, who is the co-founder and CEO of Sugar. So thanks everyone for joining. And with that, I will give it to John, give the mic to John.
Perfect. Thanks so much for making it out, y'all. And to those that will be watching, clips of these pieces, I think we're going to cover some cool things. So first, as an introduction, if you guys don't know Sugar, what we do is we help companies automate workflows for cloud marketplaces and cloud partnerships, so co-selling. We also have other product offerings like partner relationship management tool, PRM, to allow partners to collaborate with one another, working with a whole host of companies ranging from startups like Vanta and Glean to large enterprises like the AI Labs or Workday, et cetera. And with us, we have Reagan. Reagan's our PDM. Um, and before we get into the slides and show some data, I kind of want to start with like a hot topic that I think a lot of folks might be interested in, which is agent co-selling. The amount of times, Reagan, that I've had customers reach out being like, my opportunity score is low. What the heck are you guys going to do about it? How do I get this up from all my scores are 20? How do I get it up above 50? Like, I can't even get someone from AWS on the line. I get an agent. I got to have my agent talk to their agents. What's going on? So, can you share a little bit of what AWS's rationale behind agent-led and kind of agentifying, whatever you want to call it, AI-fying the Partner Central experience. Maybe starting with like the rationale and the motivation first, and then we can get into the tactical pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, John. Very timely. Maybe a bit of background why I'm on this session talking with John about this particular subject. So, yes, I'm a PDM, but I've been a PDM for 6.5 years at AWS. I've worked, like John mentioned, similar to Sugar's customer portfolio. I've worked from startups trying to get started to some of our largest ISVs who you think have a really well-oiled machine, but still are still figuring things out, right, as they progress through the maturity curve. And this role I'm in now was very much, yes, I'm a PDM. I'm Sugar's PDM. But Sugar obviously plays a really interesting intersection of helping other partners partner with AWS. So I've got this weird role of being like voice of partner as well as being a PDM through proxy of what Sugar does representing hundreds of customers. And one of the hottest subjects as a PDM has always been from the very first days of me working as a PDR 6.5 years ago, when I put in pipeline and I want to engage with AWS, how does AWS respond and add value to that opportunity? And we've seen over the last 6.5 years, and I particularly saw this in Australia, John, where like the maturity curve is maybe a couple years behind North America, where when I joined 6.5 years ago, there was maybe realistically 10 technology partners. 10 were engaging with AWS in the field. And most of the feedback was when we put in 5 opportunities, we'd have 5 AWS reps pick up the phone, respond, and engage and add value to those opportunities. When I left in Sydney 1.5 years ago to take this role in Seattle, we probably had in excess of 200 to 300 active technology partners. I had 100 just in security itself, trying to share co-sell, trying to engage with our field. Now, if you think of what that means in terms of bandwidth for an AWS field rep, I can tell you some of our SMB reps get 6 new partner originated opportunities a day. Most of them are like, I can't handle this, right? I will leave them. I won't respond unless they have a very specific, particular ask. In enterprise, some of our enterprise sellers have 100 to 200 live partner opportunities in one account at once. So if you think of one of your salespeople that has, like, especially if you're an enterprise salesperson at an ISV, you might have a salesperson in your company that's got 3 or 4 live opportunities in an account at once. Imagine having 200. How do they balance that and how do they add value to partners? And that's gotten, I would say, from AWS's point of view, gotten worse all across the world, right? From a point of view that partners want more and more from us, and we can't possibly serve them. And what partners have done over the years is figure out how to almost like game this system. If I'm a large brand name and I've got a high volume of opportunities, I'm going to put them in, and that's going to outweigh the value a smaller partner can have. And so what we're trying to do is democratize co-sell, right? We want a startup with a really great use case, with a really great value proposition for customers to have just as much of a chance getting in front of an AWS rep as the big brand name does that can just put in 300 opportunities with very little business description at times, but just use the weight of their name to get in front of sellers. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that when you put in an opportunity, it does have a higher value engagement, but also not have you bottlenecked by the bandwidth of our field. We know we've got a lot of data and insights, and we want to make sure you can still get value from maybe an agent that can share those insights without necessarily being bottlenecked by a salesperson's inability to get on a phone call with you, John.
Yeah, it's so funny because even back in the days when whenever I talk to AWS sales folks, it'd be the conversation would go like, John, I have 100 people reaching out to me, all trying to get introduction to my account. Like, it feels a little stalkerish at times. And I'm kind of curious to get your perspective of even the inputs around the quality score. Does it incentivize people gamifying that side as well by having better customer business problems or, obviously a lot of AI generation? Or what are the core inputs that go into that quality score that you think will weed out the bad fit accounts from the good ones or the partners
Yep.
rather?
Look, I think, and this is still work to be done in terms of the workflows and how you think about doing this. I think a lot of partners over the years have very much copied and pasted business descriptions, and they used to do that manually by spreadsheets, and now obviously using a tool like Sugar, they've been able to do this at scale from an automated fashion. The reality is what that had done is add fuel to that fire of noise. When a salesperson looks at 100 opportunities from one of their well, from a partner, and every business description reads the same. How do I know the value, what you're offering to my customer? Like that's a human-led analysis in saying 100 opportunities with the same description. Now with AI and agents, we want our agents to make that determination as you're putting in inputs. Like, is there value here? Is this a generic input, or is there a very specific ask that relates to something like MedPick, where we know very clearly what this partner is asking for when it comes to putting in a COSO and asking for support or help? So I think the more and more customization you could put in, the more very unique, specific asks, very much, and think about this in a MedPick lens, because AWS does use a version of MedPick. The more specific those asks can be on that opportunity, the higher the score, the more we can realize that this is a genuine call for help from this partner rather than just the spamming of opportunities just to feed a partner originated number. So we will do more to release the methodology here, and we've just released the FAQ yesterday as well, which shares more around. I don't want to say how you can gain the score, but make sure you get a high quality score by sharing the right things too, John. Right? For us, it's the more generic you are, the less of a call for to our agent that you need genuine help. So this is going to take some work, both in the processes, working with Alexa Sugar and making sure you can use even AI yourself to properly populate a genuine ask in that coastal opportunity.
Yeah. By the way, for the folks like tuning in, we will show a little bit of the cool AI experience both in our own agent platform as well as Claude, for example, of the use of Sugar MCP. So stay tuned for that. But back to the kind of the rationale and how ISVs should be thinking about co-selling with AWS. Um, I always get a wide spectrum of folks saying, "Hey, AWS really wants us to, co-sell more qualified, opportunities." And then I also hear the tune of, "Hey, share it earlier and more because it gives us visibility into your pipeline and lets us know how to like partner together." And now there's even a third group, which is, hey, they want to start sharing leads all the time. And we want to be completely like this is happening quite often with, different programs like Security Hub. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that, but even around Security Hub, AWS wants ISVs to share leads. And you guys are now allowing support of leads within Partner Central. And so can you share a little bit about how ISVs should be thinking about the timing of when they should be sharing an opportunity or a lead?
Yep. I think what I sort of observed over the years, as marketplace and co-source come closer and closer together, this is where our push for earlier engagement has really changed because what we've noted, obviously from a marketplace perspective, we know that the earlier marketplace is discussed and talked about in the sales cycle. Typically, you can either qualify it out or qualify it in a lot earlier and get the right people in the room via the customer or AWS to help drive a marketplace transaction. What we realized over the years is that when marketplace was typically brought in as a late stage, like just a procurement discussion at the very end of a deal, it caused a lot of friction in the sales motion. So what I then, even myself as a PDM, would encourage a lot of my partners to share it earlier and earlier so we can get the right people in the room and qualify marketplace in or out. And so that was one of the big, I would say, cultural drivers for earlier engagement. Now it's with agents and I would say the big push from our engineering team is they're now looking at data as part of your go-to-market. So think of the more information you can share us on where you're winning, who your customers are, the problems you're solving, the higher quality recommendations we can make to our field by something that we have called solution matching engine. You might hear, if you've got a PDM, you might have heard of SME, not subject matter expert, but solution matching engine. This is lives in our workflow for our field team that proposes partners for certain use cases or solutions or opportunities for them as well. So where do we get that data to make a recommendation to our field? Everything you've just been talking about, John. Are you sharing leads? Are you sharing pipeline? If you are winning business and none of it's via marketplace, none of it's in ACE, how do we know? How do we know that, right? Think about the lack of data we've got to make the right recommendation to our field. And then in future, and I would say this, we're still working on this, but we've got our agent mode on marketplace, and I think we're still very much in the early days of defining better discovery, search and discovery on marketplace as well, and that is going to be fed by that data. So, one that's my Lahodi says this, who's the head of Partner Central. Your data becomes part of your go-to-market, and it's a very different shift from thinking I put in pipeline for AWS and I get a salesperson to engage, or I hopefully earn some trust to get AWS originated back. You're actually fueling that machine that allows us to make better recommendations in the medium to long term as well.
Wait, can I double click into what you just said of the data feeds the agent mode for AWS Marketplace? So you're telling me that the Partner Central data is feeding the recommendation engine for AWS Marketplace.
Yep. So it's one of many, obviously. From obviously we
Yeah,
see what your current customers are currently buying, segmentation. Your ACE data is one of it, competencies, all your program lean-ins, they all count, right? Like obviously it's a cumulative sort of data sources.
yeah,
Even public data sources we use, we think
yeah.
of customer reviews, but you're feeding that engine.
Interesting. So let's say that there's an ISV and they are launching more opportunities in Partner Central as a result of good co-sell or maybe just for visibility. The likelihood of that ISV being recommended more on agent mode on AWS Marketplace is higher.
Correct. I mean, we're
Wow.
a customer-driven company, right? If,
Yeah.
if we see SMB, US West, your company has a very high closure rate, success rates there, customer wins. We will do more to recommend to those profile of customers you more and more.
Yeah.
We'll double click on that success for you.
Wow. That is super interesting. I'm just figuring this out or finding out about this real time. Can you share some and I don't want to veer off topic, but I think discoverability on AWS Marketplace is such a kind of a key goal, right, for the
Yep.
past I mean since the get-go. What is the data looking like on how ISVs are adopting agent mode?
Yeah, like I said, I still think I don't have any data off the top of my head, but I can talk a little bit maybe about the vision there, John, as well. Um, And I think AWS is doing a great job at leading this vision of what the future will look like for agent-led discovery and procurement. And I've said this a lot in the last few months that I never really took a lot of interest in the buyer side of marketplace. I'm a partner guy through and through. It's always been about how you sell. But what I've found really fascinating over the last 5 to 6 months is the push that AWS is doing around that agent-led search and discovery and procurement is going to change the way you need to think about selling. So if we now have, instead of a human doing their own independent research of industry-led reports, if they are more, you could say, of the newer younger generation that does a lot of their research and discovery on socials and communities, on phone, on ChatGPT, on Claude, as a user, they're going to be like a lot of that information is being fed by data again. So that what does your listing look like? What keywords are you using? What's your pricing? What do your customer reviews look like? What is AWS saying about that data? Will help us feed again those recommendation engines that maybe not even a human is searching. Maybe an agent is searching on behalf of a human. So again, I default to data as you go to market. Like a lot of people put a listing up and just thought of that as a procure, like a when the customer wants to buy, we'll go in there and we'll transact it. But now your listing is actually dictating how an agent is searching and analyzing you. Same with customer reviews, right? If you've never really indexed on customer reviews on Marketplace and through websites like G2 and PeerSpot, do that because that is also data sources that these discovery agents and analysis agents will feed to help a customer make a decision. So this is a big area of investment for us, John, is on that search and discovery. And agent mode has had some good success. I don't have the data off the top of my head, but where our engineering vision is that eventually an agent will come, and we've a few weeks ago I can tell you we had our first purely agent-led purchase on Marketplace, where an agent searched and discovered and purchased the whole thing from a customer. So that was something we were tracking really closely. But that's where we envision the future to be, where agents will be doing a lot of the legwork for a procurement team. And
Yeah.
what does that mean for you as a partnership professional? How are you thinking about your partnerships? You might have to measure them completely differently. You might have to think about enablement completely differently for your own channel and your own partnerships as well. Maybe a partner will in future for you will be an agent instead of a company or a person. So it's really an exciting space that I think we're still innovating on in very early days, John, but it's going to move a lot faster than people think.
Yeah. I was gonna make a joke about how I'm an agent right now, John, but then it's like, yeah, I don't know how much I'm loving the change, like the amount of changes. And so along that note, the constant theme is like, especially around even for us, we're thinking about how do we show up on, search engine, right? Or not even search engine, but like these AI, like ChatGPT or Claude. And it seems like the same thing is happening with AWS Marketplace because in the past, not anyone can read through 50 different reviews, but an agent can. So it's like, how do you then actually put in the right bones and structures in place so that you can, that the agent can actually read all these reviews and, make a recommendation for you. So it seems like things are also changing that way on the co-selling side, right? With these agent-led co-sell motion. And I think a lot of people are having to adopt quite a bit to these changes. Obviously, the quality score being one, but then even some of the best practices thereafter, where it goes a little bit more from, hey, the ground and pound game, almost like let's go take AWS folks out to, I don't know, a baseball game and talk about how great our cybersecurity solution is. Can you share a little bit about what the good best practices look like today? So one part that I've heard is just, make sure the listing's set up correctly, the data, but then in terms of you know, how to even engage with an AWS seller, given
Yep.
that they have 200, partner accounts in one go, and that could easily go up to 500 as sharing these opportunities and engaging gets easier and easier.
Yep. A good question. And by the way, I think even our field, transparently, our field and PDMs are still trying to figure out how to navigate pipeline from you as a partner. Like these changes have moved really fast with people internally at AWS. So I just want to set that context as well. So we're still learning and figuring out how to best add value in those three different motions that we talked about that have changed since that June 16th date on that previous slide. But I think um, we've released part of the releases. We released our AI listing experience, which is meant to help you enhance your listing. So if you have an existing listing, even through Sugar, you can use that just to recalibrate some of the terminology and language. I'd encourage you to work with your Sugar CSM and the team over there to think about reinvigorating your listing strategy. So not only just the words on your existing listing, but the right products, the SKUs, your pricing, geographic, like do we need to have different regional, like country or geofence based listings as well? I would encourage you to think like much more strategic than just thinking about it like from an SEO perspective. So I would work with your team to do that. Secondly, like again, focus on the quality of your submissions. There is, and I'm speaking from a PDM's point of view here, where we are gold on an increased influx of pipeline. I would say culturally there is a shift in AWS now to focus on quality. Like we're still figuring it out. I think if you spoke to the engineering org, they'd rather you put in 10 opportunities of very high quality that need help rather than 100 that are just spam. But the partner organization, transparently, might have a different view on that because they're gold, like any sort of business development organization on growth. So we're still like, I think we're still figuring that out, John, as well, like that balance between quality and high
Yeah.
volume. But I would say what good looks like now is putting through quality submissions. Really rethink those workflows where you're just putting in 100 just because versus the 20 to 30 that you genuinely need help with and you're having very specific business asks. They will start to stand out. They'll start to score higher. And Sugar, I
Yeah.
believe, has released a blog as well, sort of reverse engineering the scoring process and what good looks like there. But really rethink that. And it does take a cultural shift. What I had a PDM last week say, hey, my partner used to put in 200 opportunities. They would copy and paste the business description, and maybe 20 of them would get a response from a rep. This new co-sell stuff has broken co-sell for the partner. I'm like, hold on, maybe your idea of co-sell is broken. Why are we getting them to bulk upload 200 opportunities with generic, but only 20 get a response?
Mm.
Let's rethink what good co-sell actually looks like. Maybe it's those 20 that really needed help and were high value in the first place. So really rethink those workflows and work with Sugar and the team to rebuild them or rethink them or re-articulate those business descriptions. That's what good is going to look like, right? What
Yeah.
good looked like before these releases was very different. It was a high volume game. The more you put in, the more you got on a partner sales manager's radar. Right now, we're in the flux of change here. Good is going to look like better quality data, more unique insights, and more specific asks that the agent can make a determination and point you in the right
Mm.
direction. Right now, the reason why you're getting low scores, and most of the reasoning I see is because you have a generic description. We're such and such partner, we're an ISV Accelerate, we do this, help. What does that mean for an agent? That looks the same as the next 50 partners who've done a submission as well. So that's what good is going to look like, John. Very unique, specific asks and business descriptions in opportunities.
Mm. You know, it's always so that's on one hand, right, of the partner sourced referrals and opportunities that they can, hopefully get AWS to influence and get deal intelligence or whatever specific ask might be. You know, the second part is everyone, and this goes to Freddie's question of what is the expectation that AWS field teams will help identify and develop opportunities? As you know, everyone wants AWS sourced, right? It depends on whichever company. Some companies I think are wise to the fact that hey, just the co-selling is a deal reg mechanic, but what they really help do is develop an opportunity once it's qualified, right, and really help drive influence. But on the source side, how do you think that'll change with agent mode?
Yep. I, the way I think we had explained it when we were preparing for the session, John, but I think of, and I'm going to be very transparent from an AWS PDM's point of view, maybe not what the official line is around AWS originated opportunities. My experience in 6.5 years with AWS, and I've managed everything, like I said, from startups that had very like unknown brand names in AWS, so we had to really build their brand to some of our biggest partners that walked into a room and expected everyone would know who they are. I can tell you, even the partners that have the brand names still struggle with AWS originated. Why? And it does come down to priorities for an AWS rep. If you put yourself in the shoes of an AWS rep that started at this company, we have 200 plus of our own services to sell, let alone thousands of partners. Bandwidth and noise is a huge challenge for them. And the partners that do really well in generating source business, forget all the mechanisms and the workflows and everything, have a very strong product story. We've got some really good security vendors where I worked with closely that would come in and present their product, and at the around the edges would be all the native services that they integrate with, all the first-party security services that they drive consumption and they help add value to. So before we even think about workflows and agents, think about your product value proposition. What does that mean? What stands out for an AWS rep? And even then, you may still struggle with AWS originated ops purely because of their bandwidth and mindshare, right? That's just the truth of it. I'm speaking honest here from the PDM's perspective. But then when I think of what AWS has, we have an incredible amount of data, we have an incredible amount of incentive programs, and we do have access to customers. Right now, the vehicles, all the tools in our toolbox that we can offer you are gated behind human bandwidth. That is a reality of it. Behind account manager responding and being able to offer you those incentives, offer you those account insights, and so forth. So what AWS originated hopefully looks like is probably more like AWS influence to a degree, where our agents can make better recommendations for you to speed up deals, to open up new opportunities at existing accounts by sharing those insights, incentives, and programs with you without it always having to be human led. I still want you to get access to our customers and access to our insights to help you grow your business without it being bottlenecked by a human. So that's sort of engineering's vision around helping partners. And I would say, like, having been in close to the engineering team for 16 months, they are maniacally focused on you getting as much value from AWS as possible. And this is very much, I think, in the early days of us iterating on this. So your feedback is always welcome as well on how we can do a better job. I know our agents right now, we're collating a ton of feedback to make sure that when you engage with them, they're offering you as much value as possible as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, some like interesting data points that I wanted to share with the team, everyone that's on the call. And we've talked about this before of just for folks who are able to see the slides. Basically, what it's showing is 51% of the launches on the APN are helped by the top 100 partners. It is a very, very kind of skewed distribution, I think. And we've always talked about, okay, well, how do we democratize co-selling? And then, how do these top 100 partners, are they, do they have some secret sauce that, you know, that somehow they're able to get in front of AWS sellers, right? And your point was that, hey, potentially partner central agents can democratize the co-selling for partners so that it's not just a brand name that's able to walk in. Can you share a little bit of like what you think about this distribution and outcomes across partner activity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this data is very, very accurate. Even when we look at marketplace transactions and volume, the big players, the big leaders still lead a lot of the business being done in these markets. And obviously, I mean, naturally, there's going to be a bit of that anyway, right? We can't artificially inflate that. If three or four security vendors control most of the market, that's going to look similar there as well. But um, honestly, John, I think of an AWS. I worked with one of the top two security vendors in the world when I was a security PDM in APJ. Even they walked into a room and struggled to sell the value to an AWS rep of what they did, and they were entirely reliant on their brand name. And a lot of our field reps would default to, well, of course I'll work with them. I don't really understand what they do, but I've got so much noise going on, and they've got a brand name. I'm assuming I can leverage that in some capacity to help me with my customer. Now, I'm hoping that obviously what we're doing around agent-led co-sell and that democratizing allows a smaller partner with a better use case and more immediate value to get better access by having our agents drive a lot of the traffic potentially away from a rep where there's nothing really being asked of them as well. And I know it's still a bit of theory for now, but that is our vision and our goal to give everyone a chance to get in front of a rep based on use case. And even if it's not getting in front of a rep, still to get them to get value. There's a lot of partners that all they wanted was some account insights, propensity data. What are the next projects being worked on? Where does that customer sit with AWS? Do they have an EDP? Do they not have an EDP? Sometimes that's all a partner wants. The reality is you're always being bottlenecked from getting those insights from a person. So we're hoping to make all the tools in AWS's toolbox more available to everyone as well.
Makes sense. And so, in terms of what do you call it? One interesting thing, right, of there's all these other scaffoldings, whether it's competencies or different programs that you should enroll in, and just like general best practices. So we were kind of curious, okay, well, how do these launches vary based off of, like competencies? Obviously, it doesn't mean like getting a competency leads to more customer launches, right? It just probably means that they have invested in the channel and someone is actually working on getting the competencies the same way that you have someone managing the ACE pipeline. What do you think are some of the best practices that people can do in the light of like programs and competencies
Yep.
versus just like, hey, make sure the customer business problem is filled out correctly, or yeah.
I mean, John, AWS loves partners that lean in, right? I always say to partners, you're actually not, if you're a startup in the security space, you're actually not just competing against your security competition. You're competing against AI partners, data partners, AWS GSIs, AWS regional SIs for mindshare. The reality is you show up in the pipeline. Nothing is saying to our salesperson that you're a security specialist startup partner. You're just in the pipeline amongst them. And so, how another determination for us is a partner leaning in. You want to create champions in our business as well, right? And leaning into our programs, our competencies, building relationships with specialist teams, not just the field, are a really important way to scale. Some of the partners I saw really break through that like last leg of the hockey stick are ones that did lean into these programs that showed more forward investment. So before getting anything back from AWS, we want to lean in and prove to you via the competencies or service designation programs, we have specialization. We solve very unique problems. We will forward invest and show AWS this. So leaning into those programs are hugely important, both for your PDM, it makes them look good, right? And if you make them look good, they'll want to champion and open doors for you as well. And then from expanding Sugar does this really well as a partner, right? If you relied on me, I'd be a complete bottleneck for you. Sugar does a really good job at networking within AWS, startup and field teams at building your own relationships. And you do that by forward investing, right? By
Mm,
seeing a particular segment that needs help and double downing, doing the right things from a program perspective to get that support. And so, whilst you may think a competency or certain programs your PDM is asking you to be in a bit of a tick box exercise, and
yeah.
sometimes they are, like, but it shows lean in, and that is hugely important.
So help me tie the outcome of getting a successful partnership with leaning in. So what I mean by that is hey, you get more competencies, right? Or you have your partner scorecard. For folks on the call, I'm kind of curious if if they know even what the AWS, call it a PSM, PDM, AM, what they see when a partner shows up. Do
Yep.
you guys all see, do you have a dashboard on a partner basis of like, here's how many they've launched, here's how many competencies or badges that they have? Like, tell me a
We,
little bit about what they see.
we do. We have an internal discovery portal, which is eventually is actually being replaced by SME that I was talking about. But that internal discovery portal that we've used for a number of years has our own scoring system. The methodology for that is even more of a black box, I would say. But it does take into account opportunities, geographic-based opportunities, certifications is something. If you're an SI to really think about, like I would say the capability, proving capability is really important if you're an SI partner. And one of the best way we do that is through competencies and certifications. Not as relevant, I'd say, for a technology partner though, the
Yeah.
certifications part. But we do look and score that. And a PSM and an account
Mm,
manager go into the discovery portal and see your regional breakdown, your scoring, your competencies, your program designations. Are you an ISV Accelerate? Are you a SaaS COSO Benefit? All those programs don't just live in an ether somewhere. They are
yeah.
visible to someone searching for you in our discovery portal. I think the next evolution of that, John, is with SME that, and I can tell you for a fact, these put more weighting into the scores there as well.
Yeah. So we just had a question from Jill. Hey, Jill, around hearing mixed feedback on the criticality of competencies going forward at AWS. There's so many things changing, right? You got
Yep.
PRM, you got what do you call it? Obviously agent mode, but so many changes, different programs, and I'm kind of curious how things will change moving forward, especially around competencies or some of these other funding, benefits that are tied to that.
I've had some privilege of working closer to the competency team in the last probably 6 months. I would say you're right. The bar is changing there, whereas we used to just roll out competencies. And having the SCA was a much higher bar, and then competencies were the way to bridge the gap around funding, like with MDF and incentives there. I would say what's happening now is we're having a higher bar on competencies, so you'll see less competencies rolled out, more of a focus on things like scale SCAs to lock in investment. So you are right, but now with the bar becoming higher for competencies, the ones that you can achieve will probably have a more of a higher weighting. That's my
Yeah.
prediction as well. Yeah.
Is SCA gonna matter?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
we're in an interesting part with SCAs where an SCA it was a really high bar to get an SCA, and there was a lot of so we have two types of SCAs. We have scale SCAs, we have custom SCAs. There only used to be custom SCAs. These were highly negotiated, could take a year or two, where even our finance team would highly scrutinize your own finances. We would pick everything with a fine-tooth comb. And it was very high where a lot of partners just didn't even bother. Scale SEAs is a more repeatable version of that. But what we've probably lent the other way, John, where PDMs are looking at this at Scale SEA as a tick box exercise, where a
Mm,
lot of partners are signing SEAs without necessarily knowing why as well. So we're trying to find the right balance there as well.
makes sense. I want to, in the interest of time, I would love for you, maybe this to piece on the recent releases. And there's also additional questions, Reagan, especially around like PRM measurement. I know that's like the hottest topic of the year. Uh, I think you had mentioned it could be a really good thing or a really bad thing, and I think I'm hearing that from ISVs of there's no way in heck that I'm gonna implement this. But then a lot of folks are coming either kicking and screaming, or other folks are saying maybe this is a way for me to really stand out by
Yep.
leading in, as you said. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean, uh, PRM is something which had been coming for a little while, and I think um, part of it is how do I put this? Is marketplace has moved outside of being like a startup business within AWS, like this incubation where let's see if this thing works, to a serious part of our business. And there was a lot of incentives we've given away to ISVs for many, many years, from ISV Accelerate spiffs to our sellers to 30% SaaS revenue recognition, to full EDP burn down for products that weren't even built on AWS. And that's okay when you're piloting and trying to create a business. I think now we've reached a really substantial part of our business where AWS has to, on us as well, get the unit economics right for what we pay our sellers and in terms of incentives, but scale that out. A lot of the incentives were bottlenecked by really big partners that held a lot of the big strategic funding for us, right? Because they're already significant customers of AWS, and we wanted to lean in and help them grow. To scale that out to thousands of partners is very hard the way things were done. And I'm being super transparent here. A lot of the funding approval processes within AWS for the programs you use are very manual. And a lot of them are attestation based. You tell us you think the consumption will be this, and we just take your word for it. We've reached that scale now where we need to actually automate this. And PRM is a way for us to get accurate consumption being driven by your product, and a way for us to speed up funding approvals so you get paid faster and you can apply for more, and to also allow us to scale this to more and more partners. It shouldn't be bottlenecked to the top 20, 30 partners only. Every partner should be able to access funding to help their business grow as well. So that's some of, I would say, some of the more strategic reasons why, John, why this as well. This is not just done because came up with the idea one day to make our partners' lives more difficult. No, there's a reason why, right? Um,
Wait,
and
you're
I would,
telling me that it's not just, a blanket 30% of TCV is AWS consumption?
and that I mean,
What?
and that was as a PDM, that was a crazy number that we would pay 30% consumption um, on. Like, I mean, if a partner's selling a product and 30% of that revenue is for AWS consumption, I would have questioned the way that product was built. So it never made sense to me, right, in the first place. So again, it's not just being concocted for the sake of it. There is a reason why that I just went through. The thing I would think about now is if you've gotten to compliance, and as you'll see here, is everyone sort of breathing a sigh of relief. We've met this deadline. We've reached this level of compliance. Now start to think about how you can operationalize this. So I would say understand the numbers there on the right side. So really start to look at your attribution data. One thing I said to you, John, is if you're really low in attribution data, this might be a good time as a PDM or a partner leader to think about the co-build side of your partnership. Everyone jumps straight to co-sell. How do we sell more together? How do we sell more in marketplace? How do we use more funding? But like I said, the foundation of any good partnership is co-build. Are you built on AWS? What native services are you integrating with? What revenue are you influencing? So at the end of the day, we are a consumption company, right? We want to grow cloud. If your attribution is low, how do you revisit? What can we move to AWS? What can we build on? What can we innovate together with AWS in the market in terms of a joint solution? So hopefully this sort of data gives you a clear insight into that. And I do know a lot of partner personas struggle to understand where their products are actually built. The amount of alliance people, John, I speak to them like, how much of your product is on AWS? They don't know. And they really struggle to find those answers internally in their company as well. And then once you get those numbers and understand them, think about operationalize them because that's what 2027 is going to look like. If you're not doing that already, actually, you may even already be behind. But think about the baselines that you can already see in terms of attribution and how you build them into your submission values for ARR, into funding requests, into reporting as well. And that's something that Sugar can help with as well in terms of your existing workflows as well. And RAID on the left, the revenue attribution ID, is the actual field you need to pull that revenue attribution as well.
So I'm gonna ask something a little not provocative, but something that a lot of folks already discuss or struggle with. Um, you have these kind of products at the infra and platform layer of software that does drive a lot of consumption, right? And it's typically geared towards IT stakeholders, cloud folks, technical stakeholders overall. Versus you have, let's say, a CRM that you're selling to a business like a CRO, and maybe it doesn't quite drive as much consumption for AWS. Instead of it being, 20, 30%, whatever you want to call it, it's more like 1%, 2%, 3%. Does that mean that people selling business software should just give up on co-selling with AWS? And that's only going to get amplified by the fact that there's PRM tagging, and now AWS also is seeing just how smaller the consumption is. We have a lot of business application customers,
Yep.
and they ask these questions all the time of what's the benefit, right?
I'd say think of consumption in two ways: your consumption as a company and the consumption you drive downstream. What I've seen, and I actually used to work in the Amazon Connect team, which was even the Amazon Connect was Amazon product was a very foreign sales cycle for our field sellers selling a contact center solution. And while I can tell you what our Connect team love about some of our ISVs that had very small consumption themselves as an ISV is the downstream consumption. So if you can prove that you integrate in or drive any other downstream consumption, that's one layer of it as well. But also on your consumption, I find a lot of business applications have traditionally underrated how much consumption like if you're a CRM and you're storing a lot of data as well, PRM hopefully can start properly attributing the data and the real consumption that your maybe data heavy business application can store as well. The other thing to think about is not even though consumption is one big part, John, that's only one part. If you think of the opposite to that, AWS has really good relationships in infrastructure and cloud teams, but we don't have really strong relationships in marketing and those business applications types of personas. Like the decision maker for your CRM, AWS probably doesn't have a good relationship with them, but that's like a quid pro quo you can organize with a rep. And I've seen a lot of reps lean into co-sell with the likes of a Salesforce and ServiceNow exactly for that reason, because those partners hold relationships where the field team does not. So that can be
Mm,
something that you sort of work with an AWS rep, and this is probably more tactical, but in an actual co-sell motion, we've got relationships with these personas that you don't. You've got relationships with personas and maybe sometimes a CIO or someone higher that we don't. How do we work
mm.
together to bridge those relationships? So that's another like leverage point you in that sales motion can use where the typical buyer is not an AWS persona as well.
Got it. So if I'm understanding that last part correctly, perhaps you shouldn't be expecting source pipeline from AWS in that front, but you can share deal notes or like share, kind of the relationship map within a given account. Because like that was kind of the
Correct.
question from Freddie of just, what tangible value should we expect from engaging the AWS field if you are, selling to business
Yep.
leader personas? And or do they materially help to unlock, or should we just bypass that engagement and transact through marketplace? It seems like the the co-sell motion should be a little bit different for those players than, let's say, a cybersecurity company that's driving a
Yep.
crap ton and it's also maybe there's some parts that are hosted in the customer's tenant, for example, and
Yep.
that does impact that end
You're right,
sales rep.
and super transparently, John, your assessment is spot on. Like the most successful ISVs working with us are infrastructure ISVs. I would say business applications is the fastest growing as a cumulatively, it's not as big as infrastructure, but it's the fastest growing, and we're seeing a lot more appetite. I think we've sort of created this FOMO in that business application where a couple of them have done well and everyone else wants to jump on board. In true industry, ISVs is our biggest greenfield area, the biggest area for growth, and we're still always iterating on how we can add value there. And don't get me wrong, we've got relationships from an AWS point of view with a lot of these players. What we've not really done is breach the the software buyer in some of these companies. And sometimes it takes one deal, transparently, one ISV to be like, we want to sell via marketplace to this customer for our teams to get together and sort of break down those walls at a company that where they want to do more as well.
Makes sense. Before we pass it over to Michael from our team for a quick demonstration of like how we think about co-sell as best practices, Reagan, one want to thank you so much for coming by, but two, want to kind of open up to the floor for any questions. I know there's been a lot of comments and questions. Maybe you can just kick it off with one that Colin had put of which is what matters the most? MPOP, SCA, competencies, badges, name your acronym. I put that last part in. But what do you think drives the most impact in the short term to drive pipeline? We circle the wagon here quite often.
That's a very good question. I mean, I look at the partners that do the best is top-down buying. Like we've got a model called Characteristics of a Successful Seller, COS. One of the pillars there is executive lean-in, and I would say a lot of partnerships start with alliance people that have been given this stretch role, this job of figuring hyperscaler partnerships out, and they are very much seen as disruptors in their business. And I've seen this time and time again, even with some of the biggest partners, by the way, John too, where they are sometimes seen to be competing against their channel or conflicting, adding friction to a salesperson sales cycle. Where I see it work the best is when top down is just like, we're going to make this work, right? And everyone is lent in from sales leaders, marketing leaders, product leaders, alliance and channel leaders, and then CRO and C-suite where possible. So this is a hard thing to solve tactically, but I would say figure out how to get your leadership board into cloud partnerships. There's a lot of people out there from not just Sugar too, by the way, but like industry analysis companies that can help you do C-level workshops on why cloud partnerships and why AWS Marketplace as well. I won't throw any of the names out there, but speak to John and the Sugar team, and there's a lot of people out there that can help you do that. Even some of the community groups as well, John, that you guys have got good relationships with as well. Once you've got that locked in, and SDA for me is putting fuel on the fire. It's not going to create your partnership; it's going to accelerate it as well. A lot of people sign, and I said to you, John, people sign SCAs and I don't know why they've signed them. It's very true, right? An SCA is not going to create your better together. It's not going to create your partnership. It's going to
Mm,
drive a motion that already has some smoke and fire that's working. It's going to accelerate and scale it as well.
amazing. Thank you so much, Reagan. By the way, I just realized, were people able to see my screen share,
I
the
was.
slides I was presenting? Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
yep.
Um, cool. Michael, over to you. And before we do that, thanks so much, Reagan, for making the time.
Easy. Thanks
And
for
you
having
can
me, everyone.
stick around for the demo. You can kind of see
I will.
what we're doing. Michael,
Awesome.
over to you.
Yeah, thanks. And appreciate Reagan the time. Now, I'm looking forward to, I think, this next final piece before we all hop off. So, what we wanted to do is wanted to kind of introduce insulin, which is what we've been kind of building over here at Sugar. It's kind of our dip into the agentic side of kind of where a lot of companies are going, and how do we really take a process that sometimes is normally whether it's under resourced, not enough value, not enough time, not enough effort that can be put into what people really want to do. And so I'll start to share my screen. But I think the big thing here is, if we do have, whether it's a team of 20, a team of two, partnerships teams are being asked to do a lot, whether it's source pipeline, manage, the relationships with the marketplaces, with the hyperscalers, with the other partners, how do we keep post-sale data clean? A lot of different things, and then also you end up reporting to leadership. But sometimes we don't have, whether it's operations, we don't have a lot of other people, or even if we do, we're all very spread thin. And so this is Insulin. This is our agentic platform, and think of it kind of as agents and crews of agents can help run the partnership motion. And so these agents can work across systems that your team already uses, whether it's the marketplaces, partner portals, Salesforce, Slack, Gong, calendars, all that things that you'd really want to. And instead of asking, build all these workflows themselves, how can we ask these agents to really, I think automate and get us a lot more information? And so we built a few different here. So we have a co-sale specialist, and I'll jump through a couple others just to kind of give a taste of what these can offer. But so for our co-sale specialist here, I want to come in and I need a deep dive on an opportunity. I want to identify any active stale referrals, risk flags, actions I need to take, prepare, clean up an APN. And then also, hey, I need to update Salesforce. And so these are 4 to 5, 6 different actions that I need to be done. And instead of doing multiple different tabs, multiple different people, I can do in one action. And what you'll see here is as Insulin starts to go to work, it's pulling the records, right? So it's pulling information about the particular opportunities. It's pulling APN information, identifying risk flags, giving you an email draft that you can see it's held for approval. So it's not going to do it unless you approve it to do it. It's going to update Salesforce. And so all this was done in a handful of seconds. And again, this is 5 to 6 different actions across 3 to 4 different platforms that are either not normally connected or very limited information. And if I even go into Salesforce, you can see here these partner notes were empty. And if I reload this page, you'll see here now that that update went into Salesforce, and I can go in and I can improve anything else. I can send off the follow up, right? So this is that taking a normal co-selling tool, referral record, but actually then going beyond that, right? And spreading this into what's stale, what's not, what's active. How do I get these cleanups done? I can send all these actions to APN through this agent network once I approve them. And again, you saw also that big critical thing also at the end was Salesforce got updated, right? So this is just one agent doing a few different actions, and again, going across multiple different platforms and taking those that lift off in only a few seconds. Another thing that we can do with some of these, again, another couple of examples just to show so you can kind of see some of the variation is maybe we have this AWS partner manager agent. And this would be something like, hey, I have a meeting coming up with an AWS rep named Alex Stone. I need to know everything that's happened. What's that call history? Pull it from Gong recordings. Give me a pre-meeting brief. Give me everything I need to know about going into that meeting to be prepared instead of trying to spend so much time getting caught up on everything. So you can see here, everything was pulled on previous, Gong recordings, contact who they are, what's the opportunities that they have in referrals, what are those insights from the calls, everything. All this was done in a handful of seconds. And again, this is before that meeting with Alex. And so maybe that meeting happens and I want to come back in after and say, great, just happened, pull the recording from today, analyze it, and then give me an email that I can send to Alex, as well as let's update Slack. So again, all these there are multiple different platforms, very difficult to talk to. These are all just connected in the backend in Sugar, in our insulin product. So all these connections are made, and you're seeing all these actions being taken in the 6-step plan, right? So this agent's giving you that plan, updating everything, giving you everything that's happened on that particular call, who it was with, again, all the information that comes from the recordings. And then also, again, like I said, it's going to be posting to Slack. It's going to be updating anything wherever you want it to go. You define the integrations or the agents. You define what they want them to do, what their actions are, what they can't do, what needs to be approved, what can be automatic, all completely customizable to you. So while this one's continues to run, and you'll see this in a second, I'll show you that Slack, just so you can see some other, an example. See, right? It's going to make sure I approve this. So we don't want to approve. Sometimes we don't want things to go automatically. Sometimes we do, but I can also say, hey, I want to approve that. Yep. Send that off. So again, you're getting this flexibility to automate as much as you want, but sometimes you still want that human in the loop. You still want that control. You'd set all that up with these agents. So that one you'll see here, finish off in a second. And I want to show you something else because then we can go into Slack. Another example, obviously, is like an executive brief. Give me everything for my executives, create this in a Google Doc, update Slack, show all the risks, right? So again, 8 steps, all this is being done. But the key I wanted to point out is because what not only are updating different, again, platforms, but hey, I want to create this on a weekly. I want this to be run on Mondays at 11 a.m. Great, it's going to run this. You can see this job listed here. So it's ready. You can update it, edit it, whatever you want to do. And if I go into Slack, so here's this message from Monday, this past Monday, so 2 days ago. Here's that executive brief, all broken down directly with inside of Slack. And then here is the most recent update from the post call summary with our meeting with our AWS rep. So everything updated here inside of Slack, updates in Salesforce, updates inside of Sugar, updates in the other platforms and integrations that you have, all with inside the agents that you build, whether it's individual agents or crews of agents. These are helping your team become much more efficient, whether you're your team of one or your team of 20. Um, Not sure if there's any questions, but happy to answer your questions before we hand it off.
It saves me a bunch of time from having to go ping Maddie and Charlie from our partnership team. What's the status? What's the status? Giving them a minor heart attack. I can just go to the Slack messages based on these weekly briefs that are in. Any questions from the room? And if you're a sure customer, come talk to our CS team and they can help implement some of this stuff with you guys. Um, I think Michael, that was a pretty comprehensive use case. The the beauty of this product is that you can kind of do anything that you want in natural language and it's able to plan and take those actions. So even beyond any use case you can think of, uh, please challenge us because we want to meet that bar. And going back to some of the conversations with Reagan, we even have on the partner central opportunity score. Here's an example, right? You can see the amount of pages that I have. Yeah, is we even give notes of like, hey, they're flagging that it's missing some customer evaluation requirement, and that you really want to provide some technical compliance constraints for need enrichment. I can even tell Insulin, go fix those things. It's my insistent to just tell them, hey, the score is high. The score needs to be higher because it's missing XYZ. Well, go do that. The last thing that I do want to quickly touch upon is if, you know, like I think insulin is so amazing, but let's say you already working in Claude, for example, or ChatGPT. Well, we have the Sugar MCP where you can maybe not as quite as powerful as insulin for these specific use cases, but still able to do a lot. And so the Sugar MCP, you can do things like fixing a specific field, close, lost in a dead referral, for example, really a lot of the work around partner referrals. And so, like one kind of work that we do is like run coastal hygiene. It's able to go plan through all the pieces and actually give visibility into all the different things that need to get cleaned up. So just do want to share that there are multiple different ways to skin a cat, but instance the future. Now, a couple questions. Do you offer trial? Robin, yeah, we can chat with our go-to-market team. And Reagan, yes. We already have some folks that are leveraging the Sugar, or many customers that are leveraging the Sugar MCP to build a lot of cool things. Same thing with Insulin. And Colin, yes, I think you saw the Gong SFDC Sugar kind of three-way, love triangle. Pretty exciting as long as the systems are hooked up into Insulin. Cool. Well, that is about time. Michael, thanks so much. Reagan, thank you very, very much for for blessing us with your thoughts and insights.
Well, good. I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. And I just shared the link in chat, by the way, for the new FAQ that was enhanced and released yesterday. And thanks as ever for being a voice of many partners to AWS.
I hope I'm not too mean at times, but
It's all good. All good.
no,
Appreciate it.
we all love AWS as a partner, so thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Catch up.